The blood was already soaking through his sleeve when Marcus realized no one was going to stop. Headlights flashed past fast and indifferent, illuminating the twisted motorcycle for half a second before disappearing into the darkness. The girl lay crumpled on the asphalt, one leg bent wrong, her hand reaching toward him like he was the last solid thing left in the world. She couldn't speak, couldn't scream. Her eyes said everything. And somewhere on her leather jacket a patch gleamed in the moonlight, 3 wolves circling a crown. He had no idea what that symbol meant. He had no idea that carrying her would change everything. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and follow this story to the end. Comment below which city you're watching from. I read every single one, and I want to see how far this story travels. Marcus had been walking for 6 hours when he heard the sound that would divide his life into before and after. He didn't walk during the day. Daylight asked questions. Daylight brought police cruisers slowing down social workers with clipboards, concerned citizens who saw a 17-year-old boy with a backpack and thought, "Runaway," instead of survivor. Night was different. Night let you exist without explaining yourself. The highway stretched empty in both directions. 2 lanes, no streetlights, forest, pressing close on both sides. The kind of road people trusted because it looked simple. The kind where accidents happened quietly and stayed that way. He counted his steps the way he always did. Counting kept his mind occupied. Counting stopped him from thinking about where he'd sleep, what he'd eat, whether tomorrow would be any different from today. 3,042. 3,043. 3,000. The shriek of metal came first, then the heavy final sound of impact, then silence so sudden it rang in his ears. Marcus stopped walking. His heart slammed against his ribs. Every instinct screamed at him to keep moving, to stay invisible, to not get involved. He turned anyway. The motorcycle lay twisted in the middle of the road, front wheel still spinning slowly, headlight flickering like a dying heartbeat. 20 feet away, a dark shape lay crumpled against the asphalt. A car. There had been a car. He'd heard 2 engines, not 1. But the road was empty now except for the wreckage. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, no, no." He didn't run at first. Running brought attention. Running meant questions he couldn't answer without ending up back in the system. Then he heard her. Not screaming, whimpering. Small, broken sounds that cut through the darkness like a knife through paper. That was worse. Screaming meant you had the strength to scream. Marcus slid down the embankment before he could stop himself. His boots skidded on loose gravel. His hand scraped against rock. He didn't feel any of it. The girl lay half on the road, half in the grass. One leg bent at an angle that made his stomach turn. Blood at her temple, matting her dark hair. Her arms were pulled tight against her chest, fingers clawing at something invisible. Her eyes found his instantly. Wide. Terrified. Alive. "Hey," Marcus said, dropping to his knees beside her. "Hey, don't move. You hear me? Don't try to move." She didn't respond. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. "Can you hear me?" Marcus leaned closer. "What's your name? Can you tell me your name?" Nothing. Just those eyes locked onto his face like he might disappear if she blinked. Then her hand shot out and grabbed his jacket. Her grip was stronger than he expected, desperate anchoring. "Okay," Marcus said, his voice dropping lower, steadier. "Okay, I've got you. I'm not going anywhere." He looked up the road. Empty. Looked down the road. Empty. "I need to call for help," he said more to himself than to her. Do you have a phone? Is there a phone somewhere? She shook her head once, quick and jerky. Marcus patted his own pockets uselessly. He hadn't had a phone in 8 months. Phones could be tracked. Phones meant records. Phones meant someone always knew where you were. Okay, he said again. Okay, we wait. Someone will come. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. This road was empty for a reason. This road was the kind of road people used to avoid other roads. The first car approached 2 minutes later. Marcus saw the headlights cut through the darkness and felt relief flood through him so fast his hands shook. Hey! He stood up, waving his arms over his head. Hey, stop! We need help. The car slowed. He could see the driver's face turning toward them, eyes widening at the sight of the crashed motorcycle, the girl on the ground, the boy covered in blood. Then the car sped up and passed. Marcus stared after it, disbelief freezing him in place. Are you kidding me? The girl made a sound. Soft. Pained. Her hand was still gripping his jacket. It's okay, Marcus said, dropping back down beside her. Someone else will stop. Someone has to stop. The second car came 3 minutes later, a pickup truck rumbling loud, moving slow. Marcus ran into the middle of the road this time. He stood directly in the headlights, arms spread wide, making himself impossible to ignore. Stop. Please. There's been an accident. The truck slowed to a crawl. The driver's window rolled down and a man's face appeared, weathered and suspicious. What's going on? Motorcycle crash, Marcus said, quickly pointing toward the girl. She's hurt bad. I think her leg is broken. We need an ambulance. The man's eyes moved from Marcus to the girl, then back to Marcus. Something shifted in his expression. Calculation. Judgment. You do this? What? No, I was walking, and I heard, walking at this hour on this road. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He knew that tone. He'd heard it 100 times before, the tone that said, homeless kid trouble, not my problem. Please, Marcus said. She's going to die if she doesn't get help. The man looked at the girl one more time. Looked at Marcus, his torn jacket, his dirty jeans, the blood that wasn't his soaking into his clothes. I'll call it in when I get to the gas station, the man said. 8 miles up. Just stay with her. The window rolled up. The truck pulled around them, careful, deliberate, and drove away. Marcus watched the taillights disappear and felt something cold settle in his stomach. 8 miles. At the speed that truck was going, that was 20 minutes. 20 minutes before anyone even made a call. Then however long for an ambulance to arrive. Then however long to reach them. An hour. Maybe more. He looked down at the girl. Her face was pale now, her breathing shallow and uneven. Her grip on his jacket had loosened. She was going into shock. Hey, Marcus said, touching her cheek gently. Hey, stay with me. Can you do that? Stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open, focused on his face with visible effort. My name is Marcus, he said. I'm going to help you, okay, but I need you to stay awake. Can you do that? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. But something in her expression shifted a tiny spark of awareness, of acknowledgement. Marcus pressed his hoodie against the wound on her head, trying to slow the bleeding. His hands were shaking badly now, but he forced them steady. I don't know what to do, he admitted quietly. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to fix this. The third car passed without even slowing down. The fourth one honked as it swerved around them. Marcus stopped waving after that. He sat beside the girl, keeping pressure on her wound, talking to her in a low, steady voice about nothing and everything. I used to have a dog, he said, when I was little, before everything went wrong. His name was Duke, and he was the ugliest dog you've ever seen. Part bulldog, part something else, mostly just chaos. But he was mine, you know. He was the only thing that was ever really mine. The girl's eyes stayed fixed on his face. Listening or too weak to look away, he couldn't tell which. He died when I was 12. Got sick. My foster family at the time wouldn't take him to the vet because it cost too much. Said he was just a mutt, not worth the money. Marcus swallowed hard. I sat with him for 3 days while he got worse. Held him at the end. He looked at me the whole time like he was trying to tell me something. The girl's hand moved slightly against his jacket. I think he was telling me it was okay, Marcus continued, that he forgave me for not being able to save him. The 5th car approached. Marcus didn't even look up this time. But this one slowed. Stopped. A woman's voice cut through the darkness. "Oh my God! What happened?" Marcus's head snapped up. A sedan idled 20 feet away, hazard lights flashing. A middle-aged woman was already climbing out, phone pressed to her ear. "Motorcycle crash," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "Please, we need an ambulance." "I'm calling now," the woman said. "I'm calling. Is she conscious?" "Barely. She's been in and out. I think her leg is broken." The woman spoke rapidly into her phone, giving their location, describing the situation. Marcus felt tears burning in his eyes and blinked them away furiously. "They're coming," the woman said, kneeling beside them. 20 minutes. Can you hold on for 20 minutes? She was talking to the girl, but the girl's eyes were closed now. "Hey," Marcus said, shaking her gently. "Hey, wake up. Help is coming." No response. "She's not responding," the woman said, her voice rising. She was just looking at you." Marcus felt for a pulse, found it weak, thready, but there. "She's alive," he said. She's fading. She's lost too much blood." The woman looked at him properly for the first time. Took in his age, his appearance, the blood covering his hands and clothes. "How long have you been here?" "I don't know, half an hour, longer, and no one stopped." Marcus laughed bitterly. 4 cars, they all kept driving." The woman's face went pale with something that might have been shame, might have been fury. "That's not possible," she said. "That's not, people don't do that." "They do," Marcus said. "They looked right at us, and they kept going. The ambulance siren reached them before the ambulance did. That sound, high and urgent and real, was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever heard. Paramedics swarmed the scene within seconds. Hands pulled Marcus back from the girl. Voices shouted instructions he didn't understand. Equipment appeared, stretcher, oxygen mask, 4 bag. "What's her name?" someone asked him. "I don't know." "How did this happen?" "I don't know. I heard the crash. I think a car hit her. The car drove away." "Hit and run." "I think so. There was a second engine. I heard it leave." A paramedic shone a light in his eyes. "Are you hurt?" "No. It's not my blood." "You're shaking." "I'm fine." "Son, you're not fine. Let me check you out." "I said I'm fine." Marcus stepped back, away from the lights, away from the hands reaching for him. Old instincts kicking in. Don't let them touch you. Don't let them look too closely. Don't give them a reason to ask questions you can't answer. The woman who had stopped was talking to a police officer, now gesturing toward Marcus, toward the girl being loaded into the ambulance. Police. Of course there would be police. Marcus's stomach dropped. He started to back away slowly, quietly. 1 step. 2 steps. 3. "Hey," the paramedic called after him. "Hey, where are you going?" Marcus turned and ran. He heard shouting behind him, heard someone say stop, and someone else say let him go. His legs carried him into the trees, into the darkness, away from the lights and the questions and everything that would happen next. He ran until his lungs burned, ran until his legs gave out, ran until he collapsed against a tree, chest heaving, tears streaming down his face. He'd saved her. Hadn't he? The ambulance came. They were taking her to a hospital. She was going to be okay. But he couldn't stay. Couldn't let them take his name, his picture, his fingerprints. Couldn't let them feed him back into a system that had chewed him up and spit him out twice already. He sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the sirens fade, wondering if she was still alive. Wondering if he'd done enough. Wondering if any of it had mattered at all. 23 miles away, in a garage that smelled like motor oil and leather, a phone rang. The man who answered it was 52 years old, with gray streaking his beard and scars on his knuckles that told stories he never spoke out loud. His name was Victor Kane, and when people said that name in certain parts of the state, they said it quietly. "Talk to me," he said into the phone. The voice on the other end was clipped urgent. "Sophie's been in an accident. Highway 7. They're taking her to County General." Victor's hand tightened on the phone until the plastic creaked. "How bad?" "Broken leg, head trauma. She's stable, but it was close." "What happened?" "Hit and run. Some car clipped her bike and kept going." "Victor, there's something else." "What?" "A kid found her. Homeless kid from the sound of it. He stayed with her until the ambulance came. Wouldn't leave her side." Victor closed his eyes. "Where is he now?" "Ran off before anyone could get his name. Cops are looking, but you know how that goes." "Yeah," Victor said softly. "I know." He ended the call and stood very still for a moment. Around him, a dozen men and women watched, waiting for instructions, for orders, for the word that would set them in motion. Victor looked at them. His family. Not by blood, something stronger than blood. 30 years of riding together, fighting together, burying their dead together. "Sophie's in the hospital," he said. "She's going to be okay." Relief rippled through the room. Sophie was everyone's daughter here. Sophie was the future. "There's more," Victor continued. "Someone found her on that road. A kid. Homeless, probably. Stayed with her when no one else would stop." He let that sink in. And then he disappeared before anyone could thank him. "Cops looking for him?" someone asked. "Probably. What do you want us to do?" Victor picked up his jacket from the back of a chair. 3 wolves circling a crown, the same patch his daughter wore. "Find him first," he said. "And when you do, don't touch him. Don't scare him. Don't chase him." "Then what?" Victor headed for the door. "Then you call me," he said. "Because boys who do things like that, who stay when everyone else leaves, they don't trust easy. And if we push too hard, we'll lose him forever." The door closed behind him, and the room exploded into motion. Marcus didn't stop shaking until almost dawn. He found shelter under an overpass 2 miles from the accident scene. Not great, exposed on 2 sides, concrete cold against his back, but better than nothing. Better than a police station. Better than a group home with locks on the doors and rules about when you could eat, sleep, breathe. He wrapped his arms around his knees and waited for the sun to come up. The girl's face kept appearing in his mind. Those eyes, wide and terrified, locked onto his like he was the only real thing in the world. The way her hand had grabbed his jacket and refused to let go. She couldn't talk. He'd realized that somewhere during the long wait for help. Not because she was too hurt, because she literally couldn't. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. She communicated with her eyes, her hands, her grip on his sleeve. Deaf, maybe. Or mute. Or something else he didn't have a name for. It didn't matter. What mattered was that she was alive when the ambulance took her. That had to be enough. Marcus pulled the girl's face from his memory and tried to replace it with blankness. That was a skill he'd learned early, the ability to stop feeling things that would only hurt you. To put up walls inside your own head and lock certain rooms forever. It wasn't working this time. He kept seeing her reaching for him, kept feeling her hand on his jacket, kept hearing those small, pained sounds she made when the shock started setting in. "Stop," he told himself out loud. "She's fine. You did what you could. It's done." But it didn't feel done. It felt like the beginning of something he didn't understand yet. A sound reached him through the darkness. Low rumbling, familiar. A motorcycle engine approaching slowly. Marcus pressed himself deeper into the shadows. His heart hammered against his ribs. Cops didn't ride motorcycles, at least not ones that sounded like that, deep and powerful and controlled. The engine cut off somewhere close. Footsteps followed. Measured. Unhurried. A figure appeared at the edge of the overpass. Just standing there, not approaching, not calling out. Just there. Marcus's hand closed around a chunk of broken concrete. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. "You need help," the figure said. A woman's voice, calm and direct. Marcus didn't move. "I'm fine." "You're bleeding." He looked down at his hands. She was right, there was blood. Not a lot, but enough. He must have cut himself when he fell earlier. "It's nothing," he said. The woman didn't come closer. "You carried someone tonight, on the highway." Marcus's blood went cold. "Who told you that?" "Doesn't matter. What matters is you didn't leave her." "How do you know about who are you?" "My name is Elena." The woman set something on the ground between them. "That's a jacket, warmer than what you're wearing. There's food in the pocket. Protein bar, nothing fancy, but it'll keep you going." Marcus stared at the offering without moving. "No strings," Elena continued. "No tricks. You did something tonight that most people wouldn't do. This is thank you, nothing more." "I don't want thanks." "I know. That's why you're getting it." She turned and walked back toward the sound of her motorcycle. A moment later, the engine roared to life. The headlights swept across the underpass, once not searching, just acknowledging, and then she was gone. Marcus sat very still for a long time after that. The jacket lay on the concrete, untouched. But he didn't leave either. At County General Hospital, Sophie Kane opened her eyes for the first time since the accident. The room was too bright. The sounds were too loud. Everything hurt in ways she didn't have words for, but she was alive, and that fact crashed over her like a wave breaking against rock. Alive. She remembered the impact, the world spinning, the asphalt rushing up to meet her. She remembered pain so sharp it had stolen everything else, thought, breath, hope. And then she remembered him. The boy. Appearing out of nowhere, kneeling beside her, his hands pressing against her wound. His voice, she couldn't hear it, but she could read his lips, read his face, read the determination in his eyes. "I've got you. I'm not going anywhere." A nurse appeared beside her bed mouth, moving with words Sophie couldn't catch at first. She blinked, trying to focus, trying to read. "Your father is coming. You're safe now. Everything is going to be okay." Sophie raised her hands weakly, signing with fingers that didn't want to cooperate. The boy. Where is the boy? The nurse frowned, not understanding. Most people didn't. Sophie pointed at her own eyes, then made a shape in the air, small, slim, urgent. Her hands trembled but kept moving. He stayed. He didn't leave me. Where is he? The door opened, and her father walked in. Victor Kane looked exactly the way he always did. Steady, controlled, dangerous, in a way most people couldn't define until they'd already made the mistake of underestimating him. But his eyes, Sophie could see the cracks in his composure, the fear he'd been carrying since the call came. "Baby girl," he said, and even though she couldn't hear him, she knew from the shape of the word that his voice was breaking. He crossed to her bed and took her hand in both of his. His grip was gentle, but fierce, like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. Sophie squeezed back as hard as she could. "I'm okay," she signed with her free hand. "I'm okay, Dad." Victor nodded, but his jaw was tight, his eyes wet. "I know," he said, making sure she could see his lips. "I know you are." The boy Sophie signed again. There was a boy. "He found me." Victor's expression shifted. Something complex moved behind his eyes, gratitude, curiosity, something else she couldn't quite name. "I know," he said. "We're looking for him." He stayed, Sophie insisted. Everyone else drove past. Cars just kept going. But he stayed. "I know, baby, I know. Find him." It wasn't a request. Victor saw that in her eyes, in the rigid set of her jaw, in the way her fingers shaped the words like they were sacred. "I will," he promised. "I swear to you I will." Sophie's eyes fluttered closed, exhaustion finally winning the battle against willpower. But her hand stayed locked in her father's grip, and her last conscious thought was of a face she'd only seen in darkness, a boy who had looked at her like she was worth saving, like she was worth staying for. She needed to find him. She needed to thank him. She needed to know why. The jacket stayed on the ground for almost an hour before Marcus finally reached for it. His fingers closed around the fabric, slowly testing for traps that existed only in his imagination. It was heavier than his own jacket. Warmer. The kind of thing someone bought because they expected to survive winter, not just outlast it. He slipped it on, and the warmth hit him so hard his vision blurred. "Stupid," he whispered to himself. "So stupid." Taking things from strangers was how you got caught, how you got tracked, how you ended up back in a room with fluorescent lights and people who smiled while they decided your future without asking. But the cold had teeth tonight, and his body was already paying the price for what he'd done on that road. He found the protein bar in the pocket, ate it in 3 bites, hated himself for how good it tasted. The sun came up slowly gray light, bleeding through the clouds like a wound that wouldn't close. Marcus stayed under the overpass, watching the road, counting cars, waiting for the one that would slow down and not speed back up. It never came. By noon, his body had started to crash. The adrenaline that had carried him through the night was gone, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that made every movement feel like swimming through concrete. His arms ached from carrying her. His back screamed every time he tried to straighten. His hands were swollen, the cuts from last night crusted over, but still raw. He needed to move. Staying in one place too long was dangerous. But moving meant using muscles that had nothing left to give. "Just a few more minutes," he told himself. "Then I'll go." He said that 3 times before he finally believed it. The motorcycle sound came back around 2 in the afternoon. Different engine this time. Deeper. More controlled. Marcus pressed himself against the concrete pillar, heart hammering, every survival instinct screaming at him to run. But running required legs that worked, and his had officially quit. A man appeared at the edge of the underpass. Older than the woman from last night. Gray in his beard, scars on his knuckles, eyes that had seen things, and decided not to look away. He didn't come any closer. Just stood there, hands visible, posture deliberately non-threatening. "You're him?" the man said. Not a question. Marcus didn't answer. The boy from the highway. The one who stayed. I don't know what you're talking about. The man's mouth twitched. Almost a smile, but sadder. Yeah, you do. Who are you? My name is Victor. The man paused. The girl you carried last night? She's my daughter. Marcus felt his stomach drop. His mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Angry father. Protective father. Father who thought some homeless kid had done something to his little girl. I didn't hurt her, Marcus said quickly. I found her after the crash. I tried to help, that's all. I know. I didn't. Marcus stopped. What? I know you didn't hurt her. Victor's voice was calm, steady, carrying a weight that demanded attention without raising itself. I know you stayed with her when 5 cars drove past without stopping. I know you kept pressure on her wound. I know you talked to her so she wouldn't slip away. Marcus's throat tightened. How do you know all that? Because she told me. Victor took 1 step forward, just one, then stopped. She can't hear, but she can see. She watched your face the whole time, read your lips, remembered every word. She's okay. She's alive. Because of you. Those 3 words hit Marcus harder than anything had in years. He looked down at his hands. The hands that had held her, carried her, kept her breathing when everything else had failed. I just did what anyone would do, he said. Victor shook his head slowly. No. You did what almost no one does. 5 cars, son. 5 people saw a girl bleeding on the road and decided it wasn't their problem. That's exactly what happened. I've seen the police report. I've talked to the witnesses. You're the only one who stopped. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. The weight of it pressed down on him, uncomfortable and unfamiliar. What do you want? He asked finally. Victor reached into his jacket, slowly, making sure Marcus could see every movement. He pulled out a small paper bag and set it on the ground between them. Right now, I want you to eat something that isn't a protein bar. There's a sandwich in there. Turkey, nothing fancy. Bottle of water. And then nothing. Victor straightened. You don't owe me anything. You don't owe my daughter anything. What you did because you chose to. I'm not here to collect a debt. Then why are you here? Victor met his eyes. Because my daughter asked me to find you. And when Sophie asks for something, I listen. The name landed in Marcus's chest and stuck there. Sophie. The girl had a name now. A father who loved her enough to hunt through the city for a homeless kid who'd helped her. I can't come with you, Marcus said. I can't go anywhere with anyone. I'm not asking you to. Then what? I'm asking you to survive the night. Victor nodded toward the bag. That's all. Eat, rest, stay warm. And if you need help, real help, no strings, there's a number in that bag. You call it, someone answers, day or night. Marcus stared at him, trying to find the angle, the trap, the hidden cost that always came with offers like this. He couldn't find it. Why? He asked. You don't know me. No, Victor agreed. But I know what you did. And in my experience, people who do what you did are worth knowing. He turned and walked back toward his motorcycle. The engine roared to life, steady and powerful, and then he was gone. Marcus sat alone under the overpass for a long time after that. The sandwich lay untouched in its bag. The phone number pressed against his palm like a question he wasn't ready to answer. The afternoon crawled by. Marcus ate the sandwich eventually more because his body demanded it than because he wanted to. The turkey was good. Fresh. The kind of thing you got from a real deli, not a gas station. He tried not to think about what that meant. Around 4 o'clock, he started walking. Not toward anything specific, just walking. Movement kept you invisible. Movement kept you from becoming someone's problem. He made it 6 blocks before his legs gave out. The fall was embarrassing more than painful. One second he was walking, the next he was on his knees on the sidewalk, hands scraping against concrete, vision swimming. "Hey," a voice cut through the fog. "Hey kid, you okay?" Marcus looked up. A woman stood a few feet away, grocery bags in hand, concern written across her face. "I'm fine," he said automatically. "Just tripped." "You don't look fine. You look like you're about to pass out." "I'm fine." He pushed himself up, ignoring the way his muscles screamed in protest. The woman watched him with narrowed eyes. "When's the last time you ate?" "Recently." "When's the last time you slept?" Marcus didn't answer that one. "There's a shelter 3 blocks north," the woman said. "They're good people. They don't ask too many questions." "I know." Marcus started walking again, slower this time. "Thanks." He felt her eyes on his back until he turned the corner. The shelter wasn't an option. Shelters meant paperwork. Paperwork meant the system. The system meant a group home, or a foster placement, or worst-case juvenile detention for running in the first place. He'd rather sleep under a bridge. So that's what he did. Different bridge this time. Farther from the highway, closer to the industrial district. The concrete was colder here, the shadows deeper, but the police cruisers didn't patrol this area as often. Small victories. He curled up against a support pillar and closed his eyes, hoping for sleep that didn't come with dreams. It didn't work. Every time he started to drift off, he saw her face. Sophie's face. Those eyes locked onto his, terrified and trusting at the same time. The way her hand had grabbed his jacket and refused to let go. "Stop," he told himself. "She's fine. Her dad found her. It's over." But it didn't feel over. It felt like something was just beginning. The sound of footsteps woke him around midnight. Marcus was on his feet before he was fully conscious, back pressed against the pillar, hands raised, heart pounding. "Easy." A figure stepped into the dim light. Young, maybe early 20s, with dark hair and a patch on her jacket that Marcus recognized. 3 wolves. A crown. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why are you here?" "Victor sent me." "I told him I didn't want help." "He knows." The woman Elena, he remembered her now, stayed where she was, hands visible. "He also knows that hypothermia doesn't care what you want." "I'm not cold." "You're shaking." Marcus clenched his jaw to stop his teeth from chattering. She was right. The temperature had dropped hard in the last few hours, and his body was losing the fight. "There's a place," Elena said carefully. "Not a shelter, not a group home, just a building where people can get warm without answering questions." "No such thing." "There is if you know where to look." Marcus studied her face, trying to read her intentions. She looked back steadily. No pressure, no manipulation. Just waiting. "Why do you care?" he asked. "Because Sophie cares. And what Sophie cares about, we care about." "That's not an answer." Elena's expression softened slightly. "You want a real answer, fine. 2 years ago, I was exactly where you are. Alone. Scared. Running from people who thought they knew what was best for me." She paused. "Someone gave me a choice when I needed one. I'm trying to do the same." Marcus felt something crack inside him. Not trust he'd forgotten how to trust, but something close to it. Something that whispered maybe, maybe, maybe. "One night," he said. "That's all." Elena nodded. "That's all anyone's asking." The ride to the building was surreal. Marcus sat behind Elena on her motorcycle, hands resting lightly on her shoulders, watching the city blur past. He hadn't been on a bike since he was 12, when his second foster father had taken him for a ride around the block. That man had died 6 months later. Heart attack. Marcus had been shipped to his third placement before the funeral was over. The building was exactly what Elena had described, nondescript, unmarked, nestled between a closed auto shop and a chain-link fence. Nothing about it announced what it was. Inside, warmth wrapped around Marcus like a blanket. Not blasting heat, just enough to remind his body what safety felt like. His knees wobbled, and he caught himself on a workbench, embarrassed by the weakness. No one commented. An older man looked up from a table covered in medical supplies. His eyes swept over Marcus's posture, the way he favored his right side, the tremor in his hands. "Sit," the man said. Marcus sat. The examination was quick and thorough. Hands checked for frostbite, for infection, for damage hidden under adrenaline. The man didn't ask questions, didn't make small talk, just worked. "You're lucky," he said finally. "Another few hours and your fingers would have started dying." "Didn't feel lucky." "Never does." Someone set a bowl of soup in front of him. The smell made his stomach cramp with hunger. He ate slowly, carefully, the way you did when you'd gone too long without. Elena sat across the room, not watching him, watching the space. Others moved through occasionally, men and women in leather patches on their jackets, voices low and easy. None of them approached him. None of them asked questions. It was Marcus realized the first time in 2 years he'd been in a room full of people without feeling hunted. The door opened around 1 in the morning. Victor walked in, looking tired but controlled. His eyes found Marcus immediately. "You came." "Elena didn't give me much choice." Victor's mouth twitched. "Elena gives everyone a choice. Most people just make the smart one." He crossed to the table and sat down across from Marcus, close enough to talk quietly, far enough to not crowd him. "Sophie's awake," he said. "She's been asking about you." Marcus looked down at his soup. "What did you tell her? That you're safe, that you're resting?" Victor paused. "That I'd bring her to see you when she's strong enough if you want." "Why would she want to see me?" "Because you saved her life. Because you stayed when everyone else left." Victor leaned forward slightly. "Because she watched your face in the dark and decided you were someone worth knowing." Marcus's chest tightened. "She doesn't know me. She doesn't know anything about me. She knows the part that matters." "What part is that? The part that doesn't walk away?" Marcus pushed the bowl aside, appetite gone. "Look, I appreciate the food, the warmth, but I can't stay here. I can't get involved in whatever this is." "What do you think this is?" Marcus gestured vaguely at the room. "I saw the patches. I'm not stupid, Sums." Victor nodded slowly. "No, you're not. So I'll be straight with you. Yes, this is club territory. Yes, the people in this room ride with me. But what happens here, the food, the shelter, the medical care, that's not about the club. That's about Sophie." "What do you mean?" 4 years ago, Sophie started a program. Unofficial, off the books. She saw kids like you falling through the cracks and decided to do something about it. Victor's voice carried a pride that couldn't be hidden. She can't hear, but she sees everything. And what she sees, she tries to fix. Marcus stared at him. A 16-year-old started this. She was 12 when she had the idea. Took her 2 years to convince me. Took another 2 to make it work. Victor smiled faintly. "My daughter doesn't believe in impossible. She just believes in trying harder." Something shifted in Marcus's chest. A crack in the wall he'd built so carefully. I still can't stay, he said, but his voice was weaker now, less certain. I know. Victor stood. But you can come back. Door's always open. No strings, no debts, just a choice. He walked away without waiting for a response. Marcus sat alone at the table for a long time, staring at the empty bowl, thinking about a girl who couldn't hear but saw everything. Thinking about a door that stayed open. Thinking about what it might feel like to stop running. He slept in a small room at the back of the building. Clean sheets, a door that closed, warmth seeping through the walls. Luxury beyond anything he'd allowed himself in years. He dreamed of the road, of carrying someone through darkness, of the weight getting heavier with every step but refusing to put it down. When he woke, the sun was already high, and for the first time since he could remember, he didn't immediately start planning his escape. He just lay there breathing, wondering if this was what hope felt like, or if it was just the beginning of another way to fall. Marcus stayed 3 days. He told himself every morning that he would leave, that this was temporary, that trusting people always ended the same way, with a door slamming shut and someone else deciding where you belonged. But every morning the door stayed open. No one locked it. No one guarded it. No one seemed surprised when he checked over and over just to make sure. On the 4th day, Sophie came. Marcus was sitting at the back table when the front door opened. He didn't look up at first. People came and went constantly, and he'd learned to ignore the movement. But something in the room shifted. The air changed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. He raised his head and saw her. She looked different standing up. Smaller than he'd expected, considering how heavy she'd felt in his arms. Her leg was braced crutches under her arms, but she moved with a determination that made the injury seem like an inconvenience rather than a limitation. Her eyes found his across the room. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He'd spent 4 days trying not to think about her face, and now here she was, alive and real, and looking at him like he was the only person in the room. Victor walked beside her close enough to catch her if she fell far enough to let her move on her own. His expression was complicated pride and worry, and something else Marcus couldn't name. Sophie crossed the room slowly, each step deliberate, each movement careful but unstoppable. She stopped in front of Marcus's table and stood there for a long moment just looking at him. Then she raised her hands and signed something. Marcus shook his head. I don't understand. I'm sorry. I don't know sign language. Sophie smiled. Not a big smile, small, knowing almost sad. She pulled a phone from her pocket and typed quickly, then turned the screen toward him. You stayed. Marcus swallowed. Yeah. She typed again. Everyone else left. 5 cars. I counted. You stayed. I couldn't just... He stopped, not sure how to finish. You were hurt. You needed help. You carried me, miles. You didn't stop. Anyone would have... Sophie shook her head sharply, cutting him off. She typed faster now, fingers flying across the screen. No, they wouldn't. They didn't. I was on that road dying, and 5 people drove past. You were the only one who stopped. You were the only one who stayed. Don't tell me anyone would have done it, because I was there, and I know the truth. Marcus read the words and felt something crack inside him. He'd been telling himself for 4 days that what he did wasn't special, that he'd just been in the right place at the right time, that anyone with a conscience would have made the same choice. But he'd watched those cars pass one after another. He'd seen the faces of the drivers lit briefly by their own headlights looking at him and looking away. They'd all made choices, too. I didn't know what else to do, he said quietly. I couldn't just leave you there. Sophie typed, Why? Because you were hurt. That's not an answer. Marcus looked at her, really looked for the first time since she'd walked in. She was 16, he remembered Victor saying. 2 years younger than him. But her eyes were older than that. Sharper. The eyes of someone who'd learned to see what other people missed because hearing wasn't an option. "Because nobody left me once," he said finally. "A long time ago. One person in my whole life stayed when they could have gone. And I think about that every day." Sophie's expression softened. She sat down across from him, carefully maneuvering her injured leg, and typed again. "Who? My dog?" Marcus laughed, a short, broken sound. "I know that sounds stupid, but he was dying and I sat with him and he looked at me the whole time, like he was trying to tell me something, like he wanted me to know it was okay." "It's not stupid. It was just a dog." "No. It was someone who mattered to you. That's not stupid, that's everything." They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the room had slowly returned to normal conversations, resuming people moving, life continuing. But at their table, something had shifted. Something Marcus didn't have a name for. Sophie typed, "I want to show you something." "What? Not here, outside." "I don't think I should. Please." That word typed on a screen instead of spoken carried more weight than Marcus expected. He looked at Victor, who had stayed back, watching without interfering. "Is this okay?" Marcus asked. Victor nodded. "Sophie makes her own choices. Always has." Marcus stood slowly, his body still protesting from the abuse he'd put it through. Sophie rose too, adjusting her crutches with practiced ease. They walked outside together into air that had warmed slightly since the last time Marcus had felt it. Sophie led him around the side of the building to a small courtyard he hadn't noticed before. A few chairs, a table. Nothing fancy. She typed, "This is where I come when I need to think." "It's quiet." Sophie smiled and typed, "Everything is quiet for me. But this place feels different. Peaceful." Marcus understood that more than he wanted to admit. "Sit," Sophie typed. He sat. She sat across from him, setting her phone between them, and typed, "I need to tell you something. About what's happening." "What do you mean? The police are looking for you. So is Child Services." The news picked up the story. "Mystery hero saves biker princess." That's what they're calling it. Marcus felt his blood go cold. "What?" Someone at the gas station talked. Then the ambulance crew. Then someone at the hospital. Now everyone wants to know who you are. "No." Marcus stood up abruptly, panic flooding through him. "No, no, no. I can't. They can't find me." Sophie grabbed his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Wait. Listen. I have to go. If they find me, listen to me." Her eyes locked onto his, fierce and demanding. Marcus stopped moving, but his heart was racing, every instinct screaming at him to run. Sophie typed one-handed, still holding his wrist. "My dad has lawyers. Good ones. They're working on something. A way to protect you without putting you in the system. But we need time, and we need you to stay." "I can't stay. The longer I'm here, the more danger—" "You're not in danger here. The police don't know where you are. Child Services doesn't know. Only we know. And we're not telling anyone." Marcus stared at her. Why would you do that?" "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Sophie let go of his wrist and typed with both hands. "Now, you carried me when you had nothing to gain. You stayed when everyone else left. You didn't ask for my name or who my father was or what you would get out of it. You just helped, because I needed help." She paused, then added, "That's the rarest thing in the world, and I'm not going to let anyone take it from you." Marcus sat back down slowly, the fight draining out of him. His hands were shaking. "I don't understand this," he said. "Any of this. People don't just help. There's always a cost. There's always something they want. Sometimes there isn't. In my experience, there always is. Sophie studied him for a long moment, then typed, I know about the foster homes. 3 of them. I know you ran when you were 15 because the last one was bad. I know you've been on your own for 2 years. Marcus felt his chest tighten. How do you know that? My dad has resources. He wanted to understand who you were before he let you near me. So he investigated me. He protected his daughter. You would have done the same. Marcus couldn't argue with that. He would have done exactly the same. What else do you know? Sophie's fingers hesitated over the screen. Then she typed, I know the last foster home hurt you. Not just emotionally. I know that's why you ran. Stop. I know you don't trust people because every time you did, I said stop. Sophie stopped typing. She looked at him with those sharp, seeing eyes, and for a moment Marcus felt completely exposed. Like she'd peeled back every layer he'd built over the years and seen the raw, wounded thing underneath. I don't talk about that, he said quietly. Ever. She nodded slowly and typed, You don't have to. Not with me. Not with anyone. I just wanted you to know that I see you. Not the hero from the news, not the homeless kid. You. Marcus looked away, blinking hard. He wouldn't cry. He'd stopped crying years ago. Crying was weakness, and weakness got you hurt. But something in Sophie's words had found a crack in his armor, and he could feel it spreading. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Any of this. Staying. Trusting. Being somewhere without waiting for it to fall apart. Sophie typed, Then don't trust. Just wait. See what happens. Give us a chance to prove we're not like the others. And if you are, then you leave. The door is open. It's always open. But at least you'll know. Marcus looked at her, this girl he'd carried through darkness, who couldn't hear his voice but understood him better than anyone had in years. Okay, he said. I'll wait. But if anything feels wrong, you go. No questions, no guilt. Okay. Sophie smiled, and for the first time since the accident, something in Marcus's chest loosened just slightly. They walked back inside together, and Marcus tried not to think about what would happen if he was wrong, if this was just another trap disguised as kindness. But for now, the door was open, and he was choosing to stay. The news story broke 3 hours later. Marcus was eating lunch when Elena walked in fast, her face tight with something that looked like controlled fury. We have a problem, she said. Victor looked up from a conversation across the room. What kind? Media kind. Someone leaked a photo. Security camera from the gas station. It's blurry, but it's clearly a boy carrying an injured girl. Marcus's appetite vanished. How bad? Victor asked. National coverage. They're calling him the highway hero. Every news outlet in the state is running the story. Cops are getting pressure to identify him. And social services. Opened a case this morning. Unidentified minor potential runaway. They're treating it as a welfare concern. Victor's jaw tightened. He looked across the room at Marcus, who had gone very still. How long before they connect the dots? Victor asked. Days. Maybe less. The photo isn't great, but someone's going to recognize him eventually. Former foster parents. Group home workers. Someone. Marcus stood up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. I have to go, he said. I have to leave now. If I'm not here when they come, stop. Victor's voice cut through the panic, calm but firm. Running is what they expect. Running is what proves them right. I don't care about proving anything. I care about not ending up in a cell. You're not going to end up in a cell. You haven't done anything wrong. That's never mattered before. The room went quiet. Everyone had stopped what they were doing, watching the exchange. Marcus felt their eyes on him, and hated it. Sophie stepped forward, phone already raised, typing. Listen to him. Please. Sophie, 1 hour. Give us 1 hour. If you still want to leave after that, no one will stop you. But please, just listen. Marcus looked at her. At Victor. At Elena, and the others who had fed him, and sheltered him, and asked nothing in return. 1 hour, he said. Victor nodded. Elena, get Thompson on the phone. Tell him we need that paperwork today. On it. Marcus, come with me. They walked into a back room that Marcus hadn't seen before. Smaller, more private. Victor closed the door behind them. I'm going to be straight with you, Victor said, because I think you've had enough people lie to your face. Okay. The situation is bad. Not impossible, but bad. The media attention is making everyone nervous. Politicians are getting involved, talking about youth services and system failures. They need someone to point at. Right now, that someone is you. How is that bad for them? I didn't do anything wrong. You said it yourself. You didn't, but they need a story. And homeless runaway saves girl despite broken system is a story that makes a lot of people look incompetent. Marcus laughed bitterly. So they're going to come after me to cover their own failures. Yes. That's insane. That's politics. Victor sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Here's what I'm offering. My lawyers are preparing documents right now. Emergency petition for independent status. It's a legal process that allows a minor to be recognized as self-sufficient. Basically, it makes you your own guardian. I've heard of that. It almost never works. It works when you have the right lawyers and the right circumstances. Victor paused. You're 17. You've survived on your own for 2 years without getting arrested or hurting anyone. And 3 days ago, you saved my daughter's life in a way that's now national news. If there's ever been a case for emancipation, this is it. Marcus felt something flutter in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or fear. And if it doesn't work, then we figure out something else. But I'm not going to let them drag you into a system that's already failed you. Not while I'm breathing. Why? Marcus asked the question he kept coming back to. Why do you care this much? Victor was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. Older. 23 years ago, I was you. Different circumstances, same feeling. Alone. Running. Convinced that trust was just another word for betrayal. He paused. Someone took a chance on me. Gave me a place to belong when I thought I'd never belong anywhere. I'm not saying I can do the same thing for you, but I can try. Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd spent years building walls against words like these, against offers that seemed too good to be true. But Victor's eyes held no deception, no hidden agenda, just a man who had been where Marcus was and somehow made it to the other side. Okay, Marcus said quietly. What do I have to do? Right now, nothing. The lawyers are handling the paperwork, but when the petition goes before a judge, you'll have to testify. Tell your story. Explain why you ran, what happened, what you've been through. Marcus's stomach clenched. Everything. As much as you're comfortable with. The more the judge understands, the better your chances. But no one's going to force you to say anything you don't want to. And if I can't, if I freeze up or say the wrong thing, then we try again. And again until we get it right. Victor stood. This isn't going to be easy, but easy wasn't going to save you anyway. Before Marcus could respond, the door burst open. Elena stood in the doorway, her face pale. Victor, we have another problem. What now? The hit-and-run driver. Someone identified him. Victor's expression went very still. Dangerous. Who? Craig Dennison, local businessman. He lawyered up an hour ago and is claiming the accident was Sophie's fault. Says she swerved into his lane. His attorney is already talking to the press. The air in the room changed. Marcus had never seen Victor angry before. Not really angry, but he saw it now. A cold, controlled fury that made the temperature drop. He's lying, Victor said, his voice barely above a whisper. We know that. But without a witness, there was a witness. Victor turned to Marcus. You heard the crash. You were there. Marcus nodded slowly. I heard 2 engines, the motorcycle and a car. The car left, fast. It didn't even slow down after impact. That's not enough. That's just what you heard, not what you saw. The girl at the gas station, Marcus said suddenly. The one who called the ambulance. She might have seen something. Her headlights were pointed at the road when she pulled in. Elena was already moving. I'll find her. What's her name? I don't know. Middle-aged brown hair, drove a blue sedan. She was the first one who stopped. That's enough. I'll track her down. She was gone before Marcus could say anything else. Victor stood motionless, processing everything that had just happened. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady again, but Marcus could hear the edge underneath. This changes things. How? If Dennison's lawyers can make Sophie look like the aggressor, it affects everything. The media coverage, the sympathy, the legal situation. Victor looked at Marcus. It affects you too. Right now, you're the hero who saved an innocent girl. If they flip the narrative, I become the homeless kid who helped a reckless driver's victim, less sympathetic, easier to dismiss. You understand quickly. I've been dismissed before. I know how it works. Victor's jaw tightened. Not this time. Not if I have anything to say about it. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes. Victor headed for the door, then stopped. Stay here. Stay out of sight. When this blows up, and it will, I need you where I can find you. And if I have to run, Victor met his eyes. Then you run. But Marcus, if you stay and fight, if you stand up and tell the truth about what happened that night, you won't just be helping yourself. You'll be helping Sophie. And you'll be proving that the system was wrong about you all along. He left without waiting for an answer. Marcus stood alone in the empty room, his heart pounding, his mind racing. 3 days ago, he'd just been trying to survive. Now he was caught in something much bigger, a media storm, a legal battle, a fight he'd never asked for. But Sophie's face kept appearing in his mind, the way she'd looked at him in the courtyard, the words she'd typed on her phone. You carried me when you had nothing to gain. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to fight. Elena found the witness 47 hours later. Her name was Margaret Chen, 53 years old, accountant for a construction firm in the next county over. She'd been driving home from a late meeting when she saw the wreckage on the highway. She'd been the one to call 911. And she'd seen something she'd been trying to forget ever since. I didn't want to get involved, Margaret said, sitting across from Victor in a coffee shop 3 towns away from where any of this had started. I have a family, a job. I saw those news reports about the biker gang and I thought, we're not a gang, Victor said quietly. I know that now, but at the time I was scared. I just wanted to pretend it never happened. What did you see, Margaret? She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, knuckles white. The car, the one that hit her, it didn't swerve. It didn't try to avoid her. It crossed the center line and hit her straight on. And then, her voice broke. And then it just kept going, like she was nothing, like hitting a deer on the highway. Victor's jaw tightened. You're sure about this? I dream about it every night. The sound, the way her motorcycle just crumpled, the way she flew through the air. Margaret looked up, tears in her eyes. That girl should be dead. The only reason she isn't is because of that boy, the one who carried her. Would you be willing to testify in court on the record? Margaret hesitated. Mr. Kane, I have children. If that driver finds out I'm talking, no one will touch you. I give you my word. Your word? She laughed weakly. I don't even know you. You know my daughter. You saved her life by making that call. And right now the man who tried to kill her is walking free while his lawyers destroy her reputation. Victor leaned forward. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to tell the truth. That's all. Just the truth. Margaret stared at him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, fear giving way to something harder, something angrier. That driver, she said slowly. He stopped, after he hit her. He stopped for maybe 3 seconds. I saw his brake lights, and then he drove away. Her voice shook with fury. He knew what he did. He knew, and he left her there to die. Will you testify? Margaret nodded once. Yes. God help me, yes. Back at the building, Marcus learned about the witness from Sophie. She came to find him in the small room he'd started thinking of as his typing rapidly on her phone before she even sat down. They found her. The woman who called 911. She saw everything. Everything. The car crossing the center line. The impact. The driver stopping and then leaving. Sophie's eyes were bright with something fierce. He stopped Marcus. He knew he hit me, and he drove away anyway. Marcus felt his stomach turn. That's murder. That's attempted murder. His lawyers are still claiming I swerved into him. How can they claim that with a witness? They don't know about her yet. Dad's keeping it quiet until the right moment. When's the right moment? Sophie smiled, and there was nothing gentle about it. When it hurts the most. Marcus had never seen this side of her before. The determination he'd noticed from the beginning had always seemed soft, focused on helping people. But this was different. This was a girl who had been hit, left for dead, and lied about, and she wasn't going to let it stand. You're not just going to clear your name, Marcus said slowly. You're going to destroy his... Sophie typed, He tried to kill me. He left me bleeding on the road, and now he's calling me reckless to save himself. What would you do? Marcus thought about it. Thought about all the times he'd been blamed for things that weren't his fault, all the times the system had twisted his words and actions into something unrecognizable. I'd burn it all down, he admitted. Exactly. They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Sophie typed something else. The hearing is tomorrow. What hearing? Your emancipation petition. Dad's lawyers got it fast-tracked because of the media attention. The judge agreed to hear it. Marcus felt the ground shift under him. Tomorrow. I'm not ready. You've been ready your whole life. You just didn't know it. Sophie, I've never testified in court. I don't know what to say. What if I mess it up? She reached out and took his hand. Squeezed once, firm and certain. Then she typed, Tell the truth. That's all anyone can ask. The night before the hearing, Marcus didn't sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario in his head. The judge asking questions he couldn't answer. The lawyers twisting his words. Social services producing some document, some record, some excuse to drag him back into the system. Around midnight, he heard footsteps outside his door. Light, careful. Sophie. He sat up as she came in, moving slowly on her crutches, her face tired but determined. You should be resting, Marcus said. She typed, So should you. Can't sleep. Me neither. She sat on the edge of his bed, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her presence. They'd only known each other for days, but those days had been compressed by trauma and honesty into something that felt like years. Sophie typed, Tell me about the road. What about it? What were you thinking when you were carrying me? What was going through your head? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He'd tried not to think about that night, tried to push it into the same locked room where he kept everything else that hurt too much to examine. "I was counting," he said finally. "Counting steps. I count when things get bad. It keeps my mind focused, keeps me from panicking." He paused. "I got to 3,000-something before I found you, and then I started over." "How many steps to the gas station?" "I don't know. I lost count somewhere around 2,000. The numbers started blurring together. All I could focus on was your weight in my arms and the lights getting closer." Sophie typed, "You talked to me." "I had to. You kept slipping away. Every time your eyes closed, I thought—" He stopped throat tight. "You thought I was dying." "Yeah. I was. I could feel it. Everything getting cold and far away. But then I'd hear your voice and it pulled me back. You couldn't hear me. You're deaf." Sophie smiled softly and typed, "I couldn't hear the words, but I could feel them. Your chest vibrating against my ear, the rhythm of your breathing. It was like music I couldn't quite make out, but knew was there." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. The image of her pressing her ear against his chest, feeling his voice instead of hearing it, made something ache in a way he wasn't prepared for. "I didn't know if I could make it," he admitted. "Every step I thought my legs were going to give out. My arms went numb around mile 2. I was so tired I started seeing things that weren't there." "But you didn't stop." "I couldn't." Why Marcus looked at her, really looked. At the bandage still visible at her temple, the brace on her leg, the shadows under her eyes from nights of pain and restless sleep. "Because you trusted me," he said. "You grabbed my jacket and you held on like I was the only solid thing left in the world. I couldn't betray that. I couldn't put you down and walk away." Sophie's eyes glistened. She typed slowly now. "No one has ever done anything like that for me before. You're the daughter of a man who runs a motorcycle club. People would do anything for you." "People would do anything for my father, for his reputation, for his power. That's different." She paused, then added, "You did it for me, just me, a stranger you found bleeding on the road." "You're not a stranger anymore." "No, I'm not." They sat together in the darkness until Sophie's eyes started to droop. Marcus walked her back to her room, supporting her when she stumbled, neither of them speaking. At her door she turned and typed one last thing. "Tomorrow, when you stand up in that courtroom, remember this. You carried me through miles of darkness. A room full of people in suits can't touch you." She disappeared inside, and Marcus went back to his room. He still didn't sleep. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid of morning. The courthouse felt like enemy territory. Marcus had been in buildings like this before. Fluorescent lights that buzzed at a frequency designed to make you anxious. Hallways that echoed with footsteps and whispered conversations. Faces that looked at you and made judgments before you opened your mouth. Victor walked beside him, steady and calm. Sophie was there too, insisting on attending despite the doctor's protests. Elena flanked them on the other side, her presence a silent reminder that Marcus wasn't alone. The hearing room was smaller than Marcus expected. A judge's bench at the front, a table for the lawyers, a handful of chairs for observers. 2 people from child services sat near the back, their expressions carefully neutral. Marcus's lawyer was a woman named Thompson, sharp-eyed, gray-haired, radiating a quiet competence that made him feel slightly less like he was walking into a slaughterhouse. "Remember what we discussed," she said quietly as they took their seats. "Answer honestly. Don't elaborate unless asked. If you don't know something, say you don't know. And if they ask about the foster homes, tell the truth. All of it." Marcus's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the table to hide it. The judge entered a black woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on her nose and an expression that suggested she'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "This is a petition for emancipation of a minor," she said, glancing at the paperwork in front of her. "Marcus Cole, age 17. Let's hear from the petitioner first." Thompson stood. "Your Honor, Marcus Cole has been living independently for 2 years. He left his final foster placement at age 15 due to documented abuse. Since then, he has survived without engaging in criminal activity, maintained his health, and demonstrated a capacity for responsible decision-making that far exceeds many adults. And most recently," Thompson continued, "he saved the life of another minor at considerable personal risk, carrying her several miles to safety after a hit-and-run accident. This is not a troubled runaway, Your Honor. This is a young man who has been failed by every institution designed to protect him and who has succeeded in spite of that failure." The judge turned to the child services representatives. Response. A man in a gray suit stood. His name was Hendricks, and Marcus had seen his type before. Bureaucratic, careful, convinced that the system worked even when all evidence said otherwise. "Your Honor, we appreciate Mr. Cole's recent actions. However, emancipation is not a reward for good behavior. It's a legal status with specific requirements. Mr. Cole has no documented income, no permanent residence, no educational enrollment. He's been living on the streets." "Because the streets were safer than the home you put me in," Marcus said before he could stop himself. The room went quiet. Thompson touched his arm gently. "Marcus, I'm sorry." He forced himself to stay calm. "I'm sorry I shouldn't have—" "No." The judge's voice cut through. "Let him speak. Mr. Cole, you say the streets were safer. Explain." Marcus looked at Thompson. She nodded. He took a breath. "My last foster placement was with a man named Gerald Whitmore. He was approved by the state. He passed all the background checks. For the first month, everything seemed fine." The words were harder to say than he'd expected. He'd spent years not saying them, locking them away where they couldn't hurt him anymore. "What changed?" the judge asked. "He started drinking. Heavy. And when he drank, he got angry. The first time he hit me, I reported it. Social services came out, did an investigation, decided it was inconclusive." Marcus's voice was steady now, flat, in a way that scared him. "The second time he broke 2 of my ribs. I spent a week in the hospital. They moved me to a group home while they reassessed the placement." He laughed bitterly. "A week later, they put me back." "Back with the same foster parent?" "Yes, ma'am. They said there wasn't enough evidence to terminate his license. They said I needed stability. They said—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "They said a lot of things, but the night he came at me with a belt, I knew I was going to die if I stayed. So I left." Silence filled the room. Hendricks shifted uncomfortably. "Your Honor, we have no record of these incidents. Because you buried them." Thompson's voice was sharp now. "I have hospital records. I have the original investigation reports. I have documented proof that the system not only failed Marcus Cole, but actively placed him in danger and then ignored the consequences." She pulled a folder from her briefcase and handed it to the bailiff. "Medical records from County General dated 2 years ago. Diagnosis: 2 fractured ribs, multiple contusion signs of repeated physical trauma." The judge took the folder and reviewed it silently. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. "Mr. Hendricks," she said finally, "is there anything you'd like to add?" Hendricks looked like he wanted to disappear. "Your Honor, the placement was reviewed according to standard protocols. Your standard protocols nearly got this boy killed." The judge set down the folder. "And now you're here arguing that he should be returned to a system that demonstrably failed to protect him. We're arguing that emancipation requires certain criteria, criteria which exist to ensure the minor can survive independently. The judge looked at Marcus. Mr. Cole has been surviving independently for 2 years. He hasn't been arrested. He hasn't hurt anyone. And 3 days ago he carried an injured girl several miles to safety through sheer willpower when every passing car refused to help. She removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. I've been on this bench for 22 years. I've seen thousands of cases, and I can count on one hand the number of young people who demonstrated the kind of character Marcus Cole showed on that highway. Marcus felt something crack inside him. He'd spent so long being invisible, being dismissed, being treated as a problem to be managed rather than a person to be helped. And now, for the first time, someone with power was actually seeing him. "Your Honor," Thompson said carefully, "we're not asking for the court to ignore proper procedure. We're asking for recognition that Marcus has already met the spirit of what emancipation requires. He's proven he can survive. What he needs now is the legal standing to build a life." The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to Marcus. "Mr. Cole, if I grant this petition, what do you intend to do?" Marcus had practiced this answer, but the words that came out weren't the ones he'd rehearsed. "I don't know exactly," he said honestly. "I've never been able to plan more than a day ahead because I never knew where I'd be sleeping or if I'd be safe. But I know I want to finish school. I know I want to work. And I know I want to help people who are where I was, kids who are falling through the cracks because the system designed to catch them is broken." He paused, then added, "I don't want revenge on the people who hurt me. I just want a chance to prove I'm worth more than what they decided I was." The judge studied him for a long moment. Then she looked at the child services representatives. "Mr. Hendricks, is there anyone currently pursuing custody of this minor?" "No, Your Honor. His biological parents' rights were terminated when he was 7. He has no living relatives who have expressed interest." "So your alternative to emancipation is what exactly? Another foster placement?" "A group home." Hendricks hesitated. "We would need to assess appropriate options." "You've had 2 years to assess appropriate options." The judge's voice carried an edge now. 2 years during which this young man lived on the streets because that was safer than what you provided." She turned back to Marcus. "I'm going to grant your petition, Mr. Cole. Effective immediately, you are legally emancipated. You have the right to enter contracts, seek employment, and make medical decisions for yourself." Marcus felt the words hit him like a physical blow. He'd prepared himself for rejection, for more delays, for another door slamming in his face. He hadn't prepared for this. "However," the judge continued, "I'm also ordering a review of the foster care protocols that failed you. Mr. Hendricks, I expect a full report on my desk within 30 days, and I'll be watching closely to ensure that what happened to Marcus Cole doesn't happen to anyone else." She banged her gavel. "This hearing is adjourned." Marcus sat frozen, unable to move, unable to process what had just happened. Thompson touched his shoulder. "Marcus, it's over. You won." He looked up at her, then at Victor, then at Sophie, who was already crying, her phone forgotten in her lap. "I won." His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "You won." Sophie threw her arms around him, nearly knocking them both over. He felt her sobbing against his shoulder, felt Victor's hand grip his arm, felt Elena pat his back awkwardly. He'd spent 2 years running, 2 years surviving, 2 years believing that the world had decided he didn't matter. And now, standing in a courthouse with people who had become family in the span of a week, Marcus finally allowed himself to believe something different. He mattered. He had always mattered. And no one was ever going to make him forget that again. Outside the courthouse, the media was waiting. Someone had leaked the hearing date. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest until Victor stepped in front of him. No comments. Victor said, his voice carrying easily over the chaos. Not today. They pushed through the crowd toward the waiting vehicles. Marcus kept his head down, Sophie's hand gripping his arm, guiding him through the maze of bodies and microphones. Just as they reached the car, a voice cut through the noise. Mr. Cole, is it true you're planning to testify against Craig Dennison? Marcus stopped. Victor's hand closed on his shoulder. Keep moving. But Marcus turned. The reporter who'd asked the question was a young, hungry-looking recorder, already extended. I'm planning to tell the truth, Marcus said. Whatever happens after that is up to the court. And what is the truth, Mr. Cole? Marcus looked at Sophie, at Victor, at the crowd of strangers who had suddenly become interested in a homeless kid they would have walked past a week ago. The truth is that a man hit a 16-year-old girl with his car and left her to die on the side of the road. The truth is that no one stopped to help except me. And the truth is that the same man is now trying to blame her for his crime. He paused, then added, I carried that girl for miles because it was the right thing to do. And I'm going to testify because that's the right thing to do too, that's all. He got in the car before anyone could ask another question. As they pulled away from the courthouse, Sophie typed on her phone and held it up for him to see. You just declared war. Marcus looked at her. No. He declared war when he hit you and drove away. I'm just finishing it. Sophie smiled, fierce and proud, and Marcus realized that whatever came next, he wasn't going to face it alone. The trial of Craig Dennison began on a Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Marcus had carried Sophie through miles of darkness. The courtroom was packed. Media filled the back rows. Community members who had followed the story lined the walls. And at the plaintiff's table, Sophie sat with her father, her expression calm, but her eyes burning with something that couldn't be hidden. Marcus sat behind them close enough to reach out and touch Sophie's shoulder if she needed it. His hands were steady for the first time since this whole thing started. The fear was still there. It probably always would be, but it had been joined by something stronger. Purpose. Craig Dennison sat at the defense table surrounded by lawyers in expensive suits. He looked smaller than Marcus had expected. Ordinary. The kind of man you'd pass on the street without a second glance. The kind of man who could leave a girl bleeding on the road and sleep soundly that night. The prosecutor, a woman named Angela Reyes, stood to make her opening statement. Her voice carried through the courtroom like a blade. On the night of October 17th, Sophie Kane was riding her motorcycle on Highway 7. She was following all traffic laws. She was in her lane. She was doing everything right. Reyes paused, letting the words settle. And then Craig Dennison crossed the center line and struck her head-on. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Mr. Dennison didn't stop to help. He didn't call for an ambulance. He didn't even slow down to see if Sophie was alive. Reyes turned to look directly at Dennison. He left a 16-year-old girl to die on the side of the road, and then he went home and went to bed. Dennison's lead attorney stood immediately. Objection, Your Honor. Inflammatory. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Reyes. The defense will try to tell you that Sophie Kane was reckless, that she caused this accident, that Mr. Dennison is the real victim here. Reyes shook her head slowly. But we have a witness who saw the entire thing. We have physical evidence that proves the impact occurred in Sophie's lane. And we have the testimony of a young man who found Sophie bleeding and broken and carried her miles through the darkness because no one else would stop. She turned to face the jury. This case isn't complicated. A man made a choice. A terrible, cowardly choice. And today, We're asking you to hold him accountable for it." And the defense attorney's opening was exactly what Marcus expected. Reasonable doubt, alternative theories, questions about Sophie's speed, her experience, her judgment. Everything designed to make the jury forget what actually happened. But when Margaret Chen took the stand, everything changed. "Mrs. Chen," Reyes said, "can you tell us what you witnessed on the night of October 17th? Margaret's hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. "I was driving home from work. Late. The road was empty, and then I saw headlights coming from the opposite direction, 2 sets. One was a motorcycle. One was a car." "What happened next?" "The car crossed the center line. Just drifted over. I thought at first the driver might be falling asleep. But then I saw the motorcycle try to swerve, try to get out of the way. And the car just..." Her voice broke. "It hit her straight on. The motorcycle crumpled. She flew through the air, and the car just kept going." "Did the car stop at any point?" "Yes." Margaret's jaw tightened. "It stopped for about 3 seconds. I saw the brake lights. I hoped the driver was going to turn around, to help, but then the lights went off and the car drove away." The courtroom erupted. The judge had to bang her gavel 3 times to restore order. "And what did you do then, Mrs. Chen?" "I pulled over. I called 911 and then I saw..." She paused, looking toward Marcus. "I saw a boy, running toward the girl. He was already there by the time I got out of my car. He was pressing his hands against her head, trying to stop the bleeding. He was talking to her, telling her to hold on." "Did anyone else stop to help?" "No. Cars drove past. Trucks drove past. No one stopped except me and that boy." Margaret's voice hardened with anger. "He carried her. When the ambulance was taking too long, when we couldn't get a signal, he picked her up and he carried her toward the gas station. Miles. In the dark, alone." Reyes let the silence hang for a moment. Then she asked, "Mrs. Chen is the driver of that car in this courtroom today?" Margaret looked directly at Craig Dennison. "Yes, he's sitting right there." "Let the record show that the witness has identified the defendant." Reyes nodded. "No further questions." The defense attorney tried to shake Margaret's testimony during cross-examination, questioned her eyesight, her distance from the accident, her certainty about what she'd seen. Margaret didn't waver. "I know what I saw," she said firmly. "I've replayed it in my head every night since it happened. That man hit that girl and left her to die. And he would have gotten away with it if a homeless boy hadn't been braver than every other person on that road." When Marcus took the stand, the courtroom went quiet in a different way. Expectant. Hungry. "Mr. Cole," Reyes began, "can you tell us how you came to be on Highway 7 on the night of October 17th? Marcus kept his voice steady. "I was walking. I walk at night because it's safer for someone in my situation, less people asking questions." "And what did you hear?" "The crash. Metal on metal. Then nothing. Then..." He paused. "Then I heard her. Not screaming. Whimpering. Like she was trying to scream but couldn't." "What did you do?" "I ran to her. She was lying half on the road, half in the grass. Her leg was broken. There was blood on her face. She grabbed my jacket the second I got close, like she was afraid I'd disappear." "Did anyone else stop to help?" "No." The word came out harder than Marcus intended. 5 cars. I counted. I stood in the middle of the road waving my arms, shouting. 5 cars drove past without stopping." "Why do you think that was?" The defense attorney objected. "Speculation." "Sustained." Reyes redirected. "What did you decide to do when it became clear no one was stopping?" "I picked her up, and I started walking." "How far did you carry her?" "I don't know exactly. Miles. I stopped counting after a while." "Why didn't you wait for help to arrive?" Marcus looked at Sophie sitting in the gallery with tears streaming down her face. "Because she was dying. I could feel it. Her breathing was getting weaker. Her eyes kept closing. And I knew that if I put her down and waited, she wouldn't make it. So you carried her? Yes. For miles? Yes. Through the dark? Yes. Reyes stepped closer. Mr. Cole, you were homeless. You had no obligation to help this girl. You could have walked away and no one would have known. Why did you stay? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because she looked at me like I was the only person in the world who could help her. And I couldn't prove her wrong. The courtroom was silent. No further questions. The defense attorney stood slowly. Marcus could see the calculation in his eyes, how hard to push, how much to risk. Mr. Cole, you've been living on the streets for 2 years. Is that correct? Yes. And in that time, have you ever accepted money or assistance from anyone? Sometimes, when I had no other choice. So you understand the value of being owed a favor? Marcus felt his jaw tighten. I understand the value of staying alive. Isn't it true that you saw an opportunity that night, a chance to do something dramatic? Something that would get attention, something that might change your circumstances? Thompson was on her feet immediately. Objection, counsel is badgering the witness and implying motive without any foundation. Sustained. Mr. Harris, tread carefully. The defense attorney nodded, but his eyes never left Marcus. Mr. Cole, you claim you didn't know who Sophie Kane was when you helped her. Is that correct? I didn't know her name. I didn't know who her father was. I didn't know anything except that she was hurt and she needed help. And yet here you are, emancipated, housed, supported by one of the most powerful men in this county. Harris spread his hands. Quite a change from sleeping under bridges. Marcus leaned forward. You want to know what I was thinking when I picked her up? I was thinking that my arms were going to give out. I was thinking that my back was going to break. I was thinking that I was going to collapse in the middle of that road and we'd both die there. His voice rose. I wasn't thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about favors. I wasn't thinking about anything except keeping her alive for one more step. Then one more. Then one more. Because that's what you do when someone's counting on you. You don't stop. Harris looked away first. No further questions. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they filed back in, Marcus watched Craig Dennison's face. The man was pale, sweating, his confidence cracked and crumbling. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the count of felony hit and run resulting in serious bodily injury, how do you find guilty? Dennison's wife sobbed. His lawyers exchanged grim looks. Dennison himself seemed to shrink, becoming even smaller than he'd looked at the start. On the count of reckless endangerment, how do you find guilty? On the count of leaving the scene of an accident involving injury, how do you find guilty? The judge nodded slowly. Sentencing will be scheduled for 30 days from today. The defendant is remanded into custody until that time. As the bailiffs moved toward Dennison, something happened that Marcus didn't expect. Dennison looked at him, directly at him. And in that moment, Marcus saw something that might have been shame, might have been regret, might have been nothing but the fear of consequences finally catching up. I'm sorry, Dennison said, his voice cracking. I panicked. I didn't mean to. I just panicked. Marcus stared at him for a long moment. Then he said, You had 3 seconds. You stopped for 3 seconds. That was enough time to make a different choice. He turned away and didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the celebration was overwhelming. Sophie threw her arms around Marcus so hard she nearly knocked him off his feet. Victor shook his hand with a grip that said more than words could. Elena punched his shoulder and called him a damn fool hero, which from her was the highest compliment. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Strangers reached out to touch him, to thank him, to tell him he was an inspiration. Marcus endured it all with a patience he didn't know he had. But when Victor finally cleared a path to the car, he collapsed into the back seat with a relief that bordered on physical pain. "You okay?" Sophie typed on her phone. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "I've never been okay. I don't know what it feels like." Sophie considered that for a moment. Then she typed, "Maybe it feels like this. Tired, but safe. Scared, but not alone." Marcus read the words twice. Then he nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe it does." The weeks that followed were a blur of changes Marcus could barely track. Victor offered him a permanent place, not adoption, not guardianship, just a room in the building that had become something like home. A door that locked from the inside. A key that was his alone. Marcus accepted. Sophie started teaching him sign language. They spent hours together, her hands moving slowly, his following clumsily, both of them laughing at his mistakes. It was the first time Marcus could remember laughing without checking over his shoulder first. He enrolled in a GED program. The classes were hard, 2 years. On the streets didn't leave much room for studying, but he pushed through. Sophie helped him with homework. Elena quizzed him on history dates. Even Victor sat with him, sometimes working through math problems with a patience that seemed at odds with everything else about him. "You're doing this for her," Marcus said one night, gesturing vaguely at the books spread across the table. "All of this, the lawyers, the room, the help, it's because of Sophie." Victor looked up from the newspaper he'd been reading. "Partly." "What's the other part? You remind me of someone." "You said that before. You said you were like me once." Victor set down the paper. "I was angry, alone, convinced that the world was against me because at that point it had been." He paused. "Someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. I'm not doing the same for you." "Why not?" "Because you do deserve it. That's the difference." Victor stood stretching. "I got lucky. Someone saw potential in me when there wasn't much to see. You showed your potential on a highway in the middle of the night. You earned this, Marcus. Don't let anyone tell you different." He walked away before Marcus could respond. 3 months after the trial, Marcus got a letter. It came in a plain envelope, no return address, postmarked from the state prison where Craig Dennison was serving his sentence. Marcus almost threw it away unopened. Almost. But Sophie was there, and she saw his face, and she typed, "What is it? Letter from Dennison." Sophie's expression hardened. "You don't have to read it." "I know." He opened it anyway. The handwriting was neat, careful, the kind of writing you did when you had nothing but time. "Marcus, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't want to hear from me either. But I need to say this even if you never read it. I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I'm in prison. I'm sorry because for 3 seconds on that road, I had a choice. I could have stopped. I could have called for help. I could have been the kind of person my children thought I was. Instead, I drove away. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that someone else would help, that it wasn't my responsibility. I told myself a lot of things that night. You were 17 years old, homeless. You had every reason to walk away. And you didn't. You stayed. You carried her. You saved her life. I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, about what it says about you, about what it says about me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that what you did mattered, not just to Sophie. To me too. You showed me what I should have been, what I could have been if I'd made a different choice. I have to live with that for the rest of my life. You get to live with what you chose instead. I hope it's a good life. You deserve one. Craig Dennison. Marcus read the letter twice. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. Sophie watched him. What did it say? He apologized. Do you believe him? Marcus thought about it. I believe he's sorry he got caught. I believe he's sorry he has to face what he did. Whether he's actually sorry for doing it. He shrugged. I don't know. And I'm not sure it matters. Why not? Because his regret doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change what I did. It doesn't change who either of us turned out to be. Marcus looked at her. I'm not carrying him anymore, Sophie. I carried you. That's the weight I chose. His guilt, that's his to carry alone. Sophie smiled and typed, That's the healthiest thing I've ever heard you say. I'm learning. Yeah, you are. 6 months later, Marcus walked across a stage and received his GED diploma. The audience was small, but loud. Sophie whistled through her fingers a skill she'd learned specifically for this moment. Victor stood in the back, arms crossed, expression proud. Elena cheered like Marcus had just won the Super Bowl. When Marcus took his diploma, his hands were shaking. Not from fear this time, from something else entirely. He looked out at the faces of people who had become his family, not by blood, not by law, but by choice. By the accumulation of small moments, dinners together, arguments about politics, late nights studying, early mornings training, 100 ordinary days that had somehow built into something extraordinary. After the ceremony, Sophie found him standing alone at the edge of the parking lot, staring up at the sky. She typed, What are you thinking about? The road, Marcus said. That night. How different everything would be if I'd just kept walking. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He turned to face her. I've been trying to figure out why. For months. What made me stop when everyone else kept going. Did you figure it out? I think so. He paused, searching for the right words. My whole life people told me I wasn't worth stopping for. Foster homes, group homes, the system. Everyone kept driving past. And I think part of me believed them. And now I know the truth. They were wrong about me, all of them. I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I chose to do about it. Sophie reached out and took his hand, squeezed once. Marcus squeezed back. You changed everything, he said quietly. You know that, right? That night on the road, it wasn't just me saving you. You saved me too. You gave me a reason to stop running. Sophie typed with her free hand. We saved each other. That's what family does. Family. The word hit Marcus in a way he didn't expect. He'd never had one. Not really, not the kind that mattered. But standing in that parking lot with Sophie's hand in his, and Victor and Elena waiting by the car, and a future stretching out ahead of him for the first time in his life, he finally understood what family meant. It wasn't blood. It wasn't paperwork. It wasn't legal documents or court orders or official designations. Family was choice. Family was showing up. Family was carrying someone through darkness when the whole world told you to walk away. Let's go home, Marcus said. Sophie smiled. Yeah, let's go home. They walked back to the car together, leaving the empty stage behind. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, and Marcus thought about all the nights he'd walked alone on dark highways, counting steps, trying to survive until morning. He didn't have to count anymore. He didn't have to survive alone. The boy who had carried a stranger through miles of darkness had finally found something worth standing still for. Not a place, not a system, not a legal status. A family that had chosen him the same way he had chosen them. And as Victor started the car, and they pulled away from the parking lot, Marcus looked out the window at the road ahead and felt something he barely recognized. peace. Not the absence of problems, not the end of struggle, just the quiet certainty that whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. He had been invisible once, forgotten, left behind, never again. Because Marcus Cole had learned the most important lesson anyone could learn, that courage wasn't the absence of fear, and strength wasn't the ability to carry weight forever. Courage was choosing to stop when everyone else kept driving. Strength was letting someone help you carry what you couldn't lift alone. And home wasn't a place you found. It was a place you built one choice at a time with people who refused to leave you behind. The road stretched out ahead, long and open and full of possibility. And for the first time in his life, Marcus wasn't running from something. He was running toward it, running